Half a day and good morning. Thank you everyone for being here. The Committee on Education, Air Transportations, and Statistics Research and Planning will now convene this virtual confirmation hearing. Today is Thursday, August 27, 2020, and it is currently 8:31 in the morning. For the record and in accordance with the Open Government Law, public notices were sent out via email to all stakeholders, main media broadcasting outlets, and senators on Monday, August 17, 2020, and the second notice on Tuesday, August 25th, 2020. Notice of today's virtual confirmation hearing was also available on the Guam Legislature's website. Today we have with us Senator Kelly Marsh-Taitano and Senator Will Castro. Thank you, colleagues, for joining us. Before we proceed with the virtual confirmation hearing, the legislature has general rules of conduct that must be followed. All must abide by rules of conduct and quality assurance standards. Please keep video on at all times and ensure you are in a room with little interruptions and adequate lighting, specifically to make sure the participant's face is visible at all times. The host of this hearing will mute participants until called upon by the chair. When called to speak, please ensure that you are unmuted and that you are speaking into your microphone. Members of the committee wishing to speak may indicate via the in-app chat box. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chair before speaking and shall state their name for record-keeping purposes. Each member of my colleagues will be allowed to pose questions to individuals testifying. Questions and testimonies shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violations of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the public hearing by the host. So on today's agenda, we have the confirmation hearing of Dr. Monique R.C. Story as a member librarian representative to the Board of Directors of the Guam Public Library System. And then we also have the roundtable hearing on ASD. So we'll start with the testimonies, those that are here to speak on behalf of Dr. Story, and then we'll move in with Dr. Story giving testimony on her behalf. So is there anyone that would like to speak on Dr. Story's behalf? Is it just you, Dr. Story? Oh, there, Ms. Annette Santos. Okay, yes, Mrs. Santos, please proceed.
Did you mean Arlene Santos?
Yes,
okay.
I'm sorry. Okay. I'd also like to recognize the minority leader. Sorry, I know, I'm sorry. I was thinking of another.
I was just looking for the name, maybe she was here.
Sorry, Mrs. Santos.
That's okay. Well, good morning, Vice Speaker Nelson. And I see Senators Stella Taitagui, Will Castro, and Senator Kelly Marsh-Taitano. Good morning, and good morning guests that are here this morning attending this virtual hearing with me. My name is Arlene Santos, and I'm the Acting Director of the Guam Public Library System and President of the Department of Chamorro Affairs. I come before you today to testify in support of the confirmation of Dr. Monique Caravo Story as a member of the Guam Public Library System Board of Directors. She is the current Dean of the University of Guam Libraries, and her resume speaks to her expertise in language and literacy, multicultural children's literature, and library science. Given all her education and work experiences, I have complete confidence that Dr. Story will be an asset who will strengthen the presence of library services on the Guam Public Library System Board and in our community. I am grateful and excited for the gubernatorial appointment of Dr. Story to fill the one-member seat of a librarian on the Board of Directors, an exceptional choice indeed. The last time the Guam Public Library System had a management leader with educational credentials and experience in library science was in 2002. That is 18 years ago. Since then, the Guam Public Library system was basically left on its own with an administrative officer and a library technician supervisor taking turns at the helm of the administration, the management, the operations, and services. In her capacity as a director of the Guam Public Library System Board, Dr. Story will have a direct opportunity to assist in the search of a leader who meets the qualification requirements laid out in Public Law 2713. And I'm confident she will work with that leader in improving, enhancing, and introducing new programs and services for our patrons. All of us have been affected by the global pandemic of COVID-19, and we now have to adjust our lifestyles to fit the new normal of today. This new normal requires us to make adjustments to how we do things. At the Guam Public Library System, we have already begun work on weaving in virtual programs and services into our daily operations. This means bringing to life our website and coming up with programs and services that our patrons can avail from their home or through their electronic devices. I see Dr. Story as an expert who can be a positive contributor to this new way of providing services to our patrons. I will tap her educational and work experiences in the planning, developing, and implementing of providing alternative choices to patrons in availing of library services without having to physically come to our library facilities. On another note, I envision the Guam Public Library System to be the Pacific Regional Library that will someday become a resource center for Guam and all of Micronesia. There's much work to be done, and I respectfully ask this august body to confirm the gubernatorial appointment of Dr. Story as a member of the Guam Public Library System Board of Directors, so that she can help us advance library services into the future for Guam and the Pacific region. Thank you, and Sizus Masi.
Thank you, Mrs. Arlene Santos. And is it just you now, Dr. Story, that's here? Okay. All right, please proceed. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Monique Story, and I do have a prepared statement, which means that I'm going to be looking off camera for a little bit, so please excuse me for that. So, I am Monique Story, and I currently serve as the Dean of the University Libraries at the University of Guam. I have been a professional librarian and an assistant professor of library science since the academic year 1995-1996, where I've helped patrons to find information for assignments and personal interest. I've helped develop library collections, and I've helped to develop the island's cadre of school librarians. While I've had many career achievements and an interesting life as a librarian, I have been a patron of Guam's libraries my entire life. My father, Dr. Ken Carabo, was a librarian and dean of the RFK Memorial Library. So my brother and I spent many afternoons in the RFK Library waiting for my dad to finish work, where we got to explore the library. As a student at Tamuning Elementary, I was selected to be a library aide, where I learned how to check out books, check them back in, and how to shelve. I remember feeling very proud of my job. I wasn't aware at the time that apparently that was going to be my life goal and my passion. Every other weekend, my family would go to the Dededo Public Library to check out books. My brother and I would decide together which books we wanted to check out. Basically, we strategized what books we wanted so that we could double the reading pleasure that we got. In middle school and high school, I discovered Anne of Green Gables, Don Quixote, The Green Mansion, Stephen King's It, and many other classics on the shelves of the library. Libraries were an important classroom during my college years, whether I was pursuing my degree in Spanish or in librarianship or in language reading and culture, which is a subsection of multicultural literature, because I was able to pursue answers to my own questions. When I became a parent, I would bring my son to participate in the Saturday reading hour, in the summer reading programs, or even to check out every single book available on whatever interested him at the time. As I said, libraries have always been a part of my life. I've come to understand through my life experiences and through my education that public libraries play different roles in our community. Libraries are a place to find, for people to find answers. They're a place for discovery. It's a place for growth, a place for adventure. Libraries are a community resource, and libraries are community. Through these roles, I've come to understand that libraries are a reflection of and an investment in ourselves and in our community. That's why I'm honored to be nominated to be a part of the Guam Public Library's board, to be its advocate. And through this advocacy, I hope that the library will be the strong force for our island. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Story. I want to congratulate you on your appointment. I'll open it up to my colleagues. Senator Kelly Marsh-Teichner, do you have any questions or any comments?
Just Masi, Madam Chair. And, you know, I really wanted to make sure to be here. Time just flies by. And so I was calculating while Dr. Story was going through her testimony. And I've known her for 25 years. It doesn't feel like it's been that long. And a little bit of what she was describing, you know, just really reminded me of my childhood as well. Spending the time in the libraries, the importance of books, and I knew it ran in the family a bit, but that her father was also the dean librarian for RFK. I hadn't quite remembered. But I wanted to ask her a few questions. I also want to highlight, as the acting director has, that Dr. Story just has such strong credentials. She has that 25 years of experience, because I did indeed meet her at a library. I met her at the Mark Library. And so she has 25 years of experience that I'm aware of, and both a master's degree and then her PhD focusing on specifically local literature and other literature. But I also wanted to point out that she belongs to the Guam Library Association, the American Library Association, and even the Pacific. It's more broad. It's, I believe, archives, libraries, and museums, but she belongs to that as well. So I've heard such good things about the board. I've really liked seeing the way the library has kind of organized itself this last year or two. And so I think she'll really contribute. Part of what I've thought about is, you know, how do we modernize libraries? Monique and I, or Dr. Story and I, grew up in the libraries in certain ways. And so I'd like to hear from her if she has any thoughts as to whether Guam needs to modernize our approach, or she sees any trends that might be useful here, or just some of her visions for what we might do as a whole system.
Sure. The quick answer is the step that we need to start with really is to look at the community. I had been asking the library technicians, you know, what do they understand of their roles in the library? And one of the things that they have articulated, as well as what I've noticed, is that there needs to be an understanding of what the library's role in the community is. We need to understand who the patrons are, and that's what actually will be able to drive the programs. So there are so many different models that, you know, we can talk about, but it really is going to have to start with what is it that our community wants and what is it that our community needs, and then that's the way that we modernize. And so. As I said, there are different models. You know, it could be that we look for partnerships with the public school system. It may be partnerships with organizations, community organizations, or it could be that, you know, we do take we make investments in more virtual resources. But again, it really we need to go back to what is it that the community wants and what does it need the library to be. Do they want more sources for entertainment? Do they want more sources for education? Are they looking for programs that are going to help them to, if they aren't wanting to go with the post-secondary education route, they don't want to go to GCC, they don't want to go to UOG, how do they get to advance their own education? And so our modernization needs to also, it needs to take into consideration what our community is truly looking for in its library. And it's time to revisit that.
Suzuis Masi for that answer. I really like the different facets of it. Each community is its own specific set of dynamics. And certainly here, we know that we have very specific dynamics. We have villages, we have a lot of community members who are part of that digital divide and don't have access to online resources. And so, yeah, I just think there are so many ways that we can continue to build on the good work that's been happening this last year. We have a bookmobile that's now ready to get up and running. We have a brand new archive. So I just see so much potential. And I think with the other good board members that are there, I can see everybody moving forward really well together. So I'll just keep it brief and just have that one question, but Suzuis Masi, Madam Chair, for letting me ask that.
Thank you, Senator Marsh-Titano. Senator Telena-Taidegui.
Okay, there's a mute button. Okay. Half a day, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. And Monique, I have a little secret about me that most people don't know, but way back when, there used to be a program called summer training. So during summer school, it's summertime, people were given jobs to the government of Guam. And my very first job was working at the library at NCS. And I don't know if you remember her, but her name was Mrs. DeKnight. I think first name Catherine DeKnight. She was a librarian there, if you remember, and for a long time. So she was great inspiration to me. So I worked there when I was 15 years old. And one thing I loved about her, she let me bring my guitar to the librarian. But one thing she taught me was, to be organized. And I think that stuck in my mind because I organize everything. Ask my colleagues on my desk, I've got everything organized. And it's because of how she taught me to categorize certain things and put them in order. So I love it. I so enjoy it. And I think you're going to be a great asset looking at your background. I do have a question. Why Arizona? I noticed that you went to Tempe and places there. My son lives in Arizona, but why Arizona?
Well, I actually started my college career as an architecture student. And at the time, Arizona State had an excellent architecture program. Once I got there, I fell in love with the Spanish culture and language, and so it just gave me the opportunity to explore a whole lot more by being in the Southwest. Plus, I really don't like the snow.
That's good enough for me. That's probably why my son is there too, but it's extremely hot. I know your background, having Senator Marsh, talk highly of you and knowing you for so long. And I know having her endorsement says a whole lot. I don't know you personally, but trying to read your background and I think you have a love for it. It runs in the family. I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that you continue. And I think it was during Joe Addis' time, they had the Governor's Conference on Librarian. Do you remember that? Yeah, and being a part of that, has that continued on? Do you plan on implementing that or continuing with this conference that started back in 1990, I think it was?
Well, I haven't actually thought about that. What we do have, which is the Piala Conference. That is an annual conference that travels from island to island. And so through that, we actually have the opportunity to interact with the librarians from Micronesia, as well as Hawaii and American Samoa. And so, that way we're actually able to create more of a regional network for when we have questions from people who come from those different islands and they want more information about their home islands. And so that way we can support ourselves both in terms of getting new information about the field of librarianship, as well as learn about what new resources are available in the region. And then also the public school system, they have their own conference that is specific to what the school library needs are. So we may not necessarily have one that is designed at the executive level, but we do have different organizations and conferences that allow us to develop ourselves and then to promote the idea of librarianship and information exchange across the region.
Oh, that's very good to hear, Monique, and thank you for staying involved in that and sharing your knowledge with our brothers and sisters in the Pacific too. So thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity, and Monique, you definitely have my support. Thank you so much for all of your work and serving. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tydegui. Senator Castro?
Thank you, Vice Speaker Hoffman, and good morning, Monique. Vice Speaker, I've known Dr. Story since '95. I think Dr. Duenas and I were just undergrads at the university. Monique was just Monique Caribou, and Dr. Duenas Rossetti was just Asherdy. So we've come a long way, and I can say publicly and on the record, because this is being broadcasted, that you're definitely a woman of upstanding character, and it really makes me happy to see people from our walks of life make it through life. I'm very, very proud of your accomplishments, and I'm so touched to see you give back in ways like this. I think you're the perfect bridge between this community learning resource environment and the University of Guam. And maybe if time permits, at another time, we can have a little reunion and I can share my thoughts and experiences about what I saw when I was in New York with the evolution of the learning community and learning centers. It was, when Starbucks moved into the Columbia Library, you knew something was changing. And I just want to say congratulations, and you have my support. Thanks for giving back, Monique. And I remember your dad. He was a great member of that university community as well. So God bless you on your new journey, and you bring a lot of value to the public library system. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. Dr. Story, I have some questions, but you pretty much answered them, and also with your testimony. So thank you for that. I also want to share that it has been a pleasure seeing you at the Mark Library. I used to go there to pass the time, and you're always a frequent face. So it was kind of a reassurance that something was constant. Thank you for giving your time and also for the service, accepting this appointment. And we look forward to your confirmation. Okay, thank you and God bless, and have a wonderful day and be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, everyone. Now we will move forward with the Autism Spectrum Disorder Roundtable hearing. Hafaday and good morning. I've called this virtual roundtable hearing to provide a continuation on our previous discussions with the Guam Department of Education's Division of Special Education on addressing the unique needs of students with autism spectrum disorder. According to the findings from our previous roundtable discussion, a task force was formed by the superintendent specifically to report to the needs of the students with disabilities. And so we also asked that we looked beyond ASD and also addressed other needs of the students with disabilities as well. So I thank you for that. A part of the task force is a potential partnership with a nonprofit organization to gain access to BCBA training and certification of personnel. Specific program caters to students with ASD that are available here on Guam. The goals of the task force was to complement a child's educational curriculum according to the child's independent educational evaluation assessment. Therefore, we must have a comparative discussion on the effectiveness of the task force relative to the child's IEE. In addition, as the beginning of the school year approaches, we must discuss deliberate implementation that specifically caters to students with disabilities. Today's virtual roundtable hearing will provide discussions on the Guam Department of Education's Special Education Task Force, position on public-private partnerships and the follow-up discussions, and the curriculum implementation for school year 2020-2021 for individuals with disabilities. Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for being here today, Mr. Superintendent, Mrs. Yolanda Gabriel, Ms. Tidinko, Mrs. Crisostomo, Dr. Rossetti, who's actually spearheading the task force, Mrs. Tidegui, and am I missing anyone? Oh, Dr. Duenas and Attorney Summerfleck and Mr. Nassis. Mr. Superintendent, I was discussing earlier that we have a limited time here. The legislature has a meeting with the Physician Advisory Group at 9:30. So I asked Ms. Gabriel if we could just get to the meat of the task force, and also Dr. Rossetti. And, we'd like to hear a lot of what Guam Department of Education has done in this short time with the task force to address the needs of students with disabilities. So thank you very much. And I'll just hand it over to you.
Thank you, Vice Speaker, and I'm with you. Let's just get right to the meat of it. I know we're pressed for time and a lot of things are going on with regard to your activities and efforts as well. So we are prepared to talk about the task force and address some of the discussion about public-private partnership if we have time. But I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Dr. Rossetti first, as heading the task force, to give a quick update of where things stand. And of course, she's also met, I know, with Dr. Duenas earlier as well as part of her preparation for the task force work. Dr. Rossetti?
Hi, good morning. So I'm just going to get right into the meat of it. The superintendent did mention I did meet with Dr. Duenas, and right to the meat of it, we agree that a public-private partnership, to anything that we can do in the Department of Education to partner with families and provide services, we are all for that. I think our big goal and the big push the superintendent wanted to ensure is that there's ongoing communication. So the purpose of the task force and what we're really focusing on is how to identify the community needs. We're facilitating stakeholder input. In fact, this afternoon, I do have another meeting with the Guam Advisory Panel for Students with Disabilities to look at their recommendations. So it's not just targeted to autism, it's all services for the students, but we're looking at specific services, as we talked about, for students with autism, because there's a gap that exists that we're finding between leadership and the community and stakeholders. So our main focus needs to be looking at what our community needs and what our students and their families need so we can bridge that gap. What we're doing as well is facilitating the stakeholder input. We're looking at the gaps with one-to-one aids, with service providers for recommendations so that we have a well-rounded program to address the ongoing challenges for the special education services for students, all students. And then, like I said, we are targeting autism spectrum disorder. In addition to that, there is a target for completion for final recommendations based on all the stakeholders that have been identified, which was families. We're looking at service providers and looking at service providers, families, and then the school-based individuals who are providing services as well. And we're looking again at that targeted October for a 60-day timeline to make final recommendations to the leadership of the Department of Education.
Thank you, Dr. Rossetti. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? I appreciate that we're meeting with the stakeholders and we have a target date, and that's just in a couple months. I know that you've been working tirelessly throughout this time to ensure that there's some kind of product from the task force and some implementation practices. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this, Superintendent Fernandez?
Just to clarify and to underscore the work, I think obviously with Dr. Duenas' continued discussion over the past couple of roundtables and with Dr. Rossetti, it's really clear that what we're looking at is capacity building at the services that are needed by our students And a lot of that has now, I think the discussion is really centered on how to build that capacity, the kind of training that's needed, what capacity we have internal to the department, and so forth. So we are very focused on that, and that's why I appreciate the discussion that's taken place so far. I did want to make sure, like you, Vice Speaker, that we also made sure to not simply focus on the one issue, but ensure that we gave people an opportunity to raise, to have input into this discussion. So at the end of the day, we are reflecting what we feel is an accurate assessment of the needs and issues. So we are, in addition to the stakeholder input, we are looking internally to track the concerns and issues that have been, have come up over the years, that we want to make sure that even though we address those issues case by case, that any of those common threads and issues that are available, we want to make sure that we weave them into our discussion so that the solution makes sense. So the public-private partnership piece, again, ensuring that we have the training that's needed for staff. Dr. Duenas laid out, I think, in our prior roundtable, a vision for how that might take place. I know that we do have an existing RFP out to try to start laying the foundation for some of that training, and that'll be the continued discussion. If we don't have the capacity internally, then public-private partnership makes sense, and then that's really what we're committed to. So if you'd like to hear more about what's taken place with regard to at least this latest round of soliciting for that type of support, Ms. Gabriel was able to provide that update because we do have an ongoing solicitation that was supposed to be complete by now, but for the shutdown, which prevented us from closing the solicitation until the shutdown is lifted. So we're here to answer those questions if you'd like.
Yes, that would be great, because the reason why we're having these roundtable discussions is because some CRTs, some teachers, and some parents felt that Guam Department of Education can do much more to provide for the children with disabilities. And it has become perhaps a habit in some eyes that this practice of one-to-one aid is not really needed for some of the students, but because the parent requests it, it's given to them because they're, Guam Department of Education also wants to ensure that they meet the needs of the parent and the child, and to also prevent lawsuits happening. And so I think, and I've talked to you before about this, Mr. Superintendent, about, re-examining the IEPs and seeing really how do we tailor off the one-to-one aid and allow the client or the student to act on their own. And so I appreciate that movement. And also, I agree with you with the training that is needed, certifications that are needed, valid certifications. And I know that this does not happen overnight. I know it'll be a process. And, I also recommended perhaps a pilot program rather than just requiring teachers across the board to implement. And, that's just overwhelming for them. And so I appreciate that. And so Ms. Gabriel, would you like to speak on the matters that the superintendent mentioned?
If I could have just a couple of minutes, I just also want to let you know, and she definitely will talk about the public-private partnership, but I just wanted to thank you, Vice Speaker, for the couple of roundtables we've already had, because in addition to the conversation with Hunter Speaks, and in addition to the RFP that is out there to try to get that outsourcing of some of that training that we need, because of your roundtables, we've also been approached by two interested individuals who are BCBA certified, who, because you've raised the issue, have asked us whether there's a need for assistance, whether there might be opportunities. And right now we're looking at that because we don't have any particularly specific positions, but that's always an option as part of the capacity building. So your raising the issue has actually brought interest of people who've reached out to the department since the last roundtable. So we appreciate that. Thank you. Ms. Gabriel, do you want to add about the RFP?
Good morning again, and thank you very much for this opportunity of having us with this roundtable discussion. As what the superintendent had mentioned, I view this as also as a positive engagement between the education agency and the legislature, because it has given us the opportunity to demonstrate what we are doing here within the school education department. So it also some sort of provide a testimony that there are a lot of things ongoing, a lot of activities support that the Department of Education is embarking on in order to provide a continued support to our students with disabilities. So as I've said, some may view this otherwise, but I view this very positive because it gave us some sort of a venue to kind of, showcase that we are doing the best that we could in order to provide support to our students with disabilities and their parents and families. With reference to the ongoing professional development and training and support, we have kind of embarked since late last year some sort of a support from a company that would provide online support and professional development to our education personnel. One of that would be the basic ABA support that would allow within this year to have those participants to complete ABA basic support for a total of 140 education personnel. And for the advanced ABA, that would allow them to get some sort of take certification for the registered behavior technician, will be having or to able to complete approximately 45 education personnel. So they are able to complete the educational component, make them entitled or able to afford the opportunity to take the RBT certification. With reference to building capacity within the education agency, we have an RFP that we have released and published, and as what the superintendent had made mention, was supposed to have been closed since last week, but our procurement office had come up on an amendment to extend the submission of offers to the RFP. So the RFP would be targeting three major objectives, and that would be focusing on district capacity. Second one is for the special education classroom, and the third major objective would be the special education students. So the RFP number 023-2200 is also posted in our GDOE website, as well as the announcement of the release for the extension due to the closure or the lockdown within the government of Guam. So it's our hope that, ongoing professional development, ongoing support to our students, not also to our education personnel, would kind of have us come up with some sort of the understanding that we here at the Guam Department of Education have an ongoing process and support so that we are able, better equipped to provide support to our students with special needs. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mrs. Gabriel, and thank you for that briefing. It's very important for us that we are moving forward. And I agree with you. This is a very positive thing that we are doing. It gives Guam Department of Education to showcase what they are doing for the students and their progress in the future. And so I thank you for that because, educators are required really to look at the holistic needs of the child. And so it's hard being an educator. You really have to have a love for it. And so I thank you for the work that you're doing and everyone here as well. Is there anyone that would like to speak before I call in my colleagues to ask any questions? No? Okay. Yes, Mr. Summerfleck.
With the current status of the pandemic, obviously it's being discussed that there will be no traditional class and we may be a semester before we have any face-to-face education. How is the department helping parents deal with this, particularly parents who have autistic children or children with severe disabilities? How is the department able to provide education without one-to-one aids? Is the department offering training to parents? Is this basic ABA support or the advanced support being put forward for parents to participate in? Because obviously if there's no face-to-face, there is no one-to-one aid assisting any of these children. There is no RBT. There is no one but a parent. Is the department looking at providing parents the skills so that their children are able to benefit from this online learning that we're anticipating? The second part of the question is, how is the department protecting the children themselves who are under 13 pursuant to federal law, Children Online Privacy Protection Act? You know, one of the concerns that I have is we have cases in our office now of teenage children who are accessed by adults. Does this not increase the access of the children to adults? Does this not potentially expose children to assault? You know, and I'll give an example. A child may be in a second or third grade classroom having discussion, and during that discussion brings up that my mom takes grandma shopping every Wednesday at 3 o'clock and leaves me home alone. Do we not present opportunities for danger?
Yes, thank you, Attorney Summerfleck.
So those are
I
my
know-
two concerns.
Okay, thank you. I understand that Guam Department of Education also has social workers who have a long list of items to address, but Mr. Superintendent, can you please just, do you have a response for that?
Well, you know, we responded last time with how we were approaching the school year with regard to the 3 models of education. And we were looking at that on an IEP by IEP basis. And what was good about that, and I know Attorney Summerfleck was involved in some of those discussions, was that with individual students, we were able to discuss accommodations within the available models and to address the student needs. And in some cases, Vice Speaker, that even included, you know, where all students are in cohorts and going once or twice a week, even being able to provide support every day, you know, for the 4 days of the week that where classes were taking place, to be able to accommodate individual students who requested that accommodation. So that was the direction we were going in. We were all, of course, I don't want to say surprised, because we saw the rise in cases that was coming, but it did, when the executive order was put forward, it did prevent us from face-to-face learning. And so that meant that we had to look at the options of moving students either onto the hard copy distribution or to online. And then also late last week, with another executive order, where the restrictions were further strengthened, we were even unable to immediately commence with the hard copy distribution. And so that's something we're continuing to work with the governor's office to try to support at least the hard copy distribution, but without the face-to-face interaction, that really harmed our ability to at least make that an option for students, and that's the challenge. So we were looking at a 2-week scenario and then trying to revert to normal, but it looks like that's going to be extended. So we are further discussing how we can meet the needs of our special education students, because it is challenging in this environment with all these restrictions in place. And we're doing that internally and looking at case by case approach to it. But we recognize that there is going to be some challenge because of the lack of our ability to be on the school campuses. We are having parent meetings, over the next couple of weeks, including one that will be dedicated just to our families with kids who are in a special education program and receiving services, to further hear from our parents and understand, what options we should be able to be considering. With online being the primary available option right now, we do have our folks under Deputy Joe Sanchez working on a plan to expand the online model. Part of that discussion is going to be, of course, for those students in our special education program, looking at assistive technology support, to the extent that that is requested and makes sense for those students, as well as I recognize the concerns of also of the online protections. So we will be looking at that as well, because of course, as we expand the online model, that will of course be a growing concern and risk. So that is something that we're working on. Now, we weren't planning for such a rapid expansion because we knew how many things needed to be addressed to get ready. But because of the fact that we may foresee prolonged shutdown of our schools in terms of the public health situation, it's forced us to accelerate the plans and the implementation of the online expansion. And we'll be happy to keep you updated on that. That plan is kind of, the teams are working, doubly hard to make things happen, including the distribution of devices that we currently have in our school system to students, and addressing other issues like internet access and so forth. So that we're in the middle of that right now and don't have all the details, but that's the priority right now.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Mr. Summerflat, yes, Attorney Summerflat?
What about the issue of training
Hello?
parents? What about the issue of training parents if there is no face-to-face? Without the parental training, you're asking parents to basically be the RBTs so that the child can benefit from their education without the knowledge base to do it. I mean, having been a parent and being a parent of an autistic child, if you said to me, Daniel, okay, you're your child's RBT, I can tell you every night when we had homework, it took both of us to work through the homework. And it wasn't a half hour, 45 minutes of working on homework. It was every night, 2 to 3 hours. And this is after having been in class all day long. So I don't know that a lot of parents are going to be equipped with the tools or even the temperament, and then if a parent works for the Department of Education, they're required to now work from 7:30 to 2:35. How are they even able to have their child benefit from the online learning if they're working? So I understand what you're saying, and I know we're working in a dynamic environment right now that's in constant shift because everyone was planning we'd be doing face-to-face at this point. Reality is now something different. We don't have face-to-face. So it's either that none of these children are going to receive any benefit of education for this entire semester, or we come up with some plan to educate the parents. And right now, where's the module for that? Where's even the thought process for that? I didn't see any comment about that in what was discussed.
So I welcome your input, and Vice Speaker, if I may, I welcome that input. I mean, we are looking at parent training for all of the models that we have in place, especially the online. That's been a request and demand. So we will make sure that is addressed in the work that's being done right now regarding the expansion of the online model. We did envision a need for parent support and training. What you're raising is in particular with families of our students with special needs, and I definitely would be happy to take that as part of the planning process and include that in our plans. So again, it is a dynamic environment, and these plans are simply accelerating. So we definitely will take that in and report back to the Vice Speaker as needed. But I hear you, and I understand. And our concern really is for all students losing out on a whole school year because of the changes and the opening and closing of the different models. We do need some stability, and we do need some support for the parents. And what you're raising definitely will be taken into consideration with regard to our special needs families.
Respectfully, was involved in litigation for 20 years regarding our Department of Mental Health and our Department of Integrated Services. And one of the key issues that continually came up was, are we actually implementing, or are we just planning to plan? And right now, if the plan to plan is supposed to be coming up with recommendations in October, what happens between today and October for these children? And I would also comment to you that, yes, there has been IEPs conducted. And in one IEP, it was agreed to provide a student a computer, but no internet access. So in essence, what good is the computer without the internet access? And that's why I say, are we planning to plan? Are we looking to implement things real time, ongoing, tomorrow, to assist these parents in providing their children an education? Or are we looking at going back to March, where we just shut our schools down and basically provided nothing during that interim period? I guess that's the question. Are we planning to plan, or are we actually implementing?
Vice Speaker, if I could speak a little bit on this issue.
Yes.
I just want to say that at Hunter Speaks, we already utilize a very effective telehealth parent training model that we've been using with our clients during this entire shutdown. I do think that if we are able to proceed forward with this public-private partnership with GDOE, we can effectively implement something like that. Ms. Gabriel did mention the RFP, and we are submitting for this RFP for this potential partnership. And again, we look forward to building the capacity. I see Ms. Kathy Tydinko on the screen here, and we also look forward to trying to at some point work with Guam Early Intervention. But we do have a plan in place, and we're hoping that the RFP moves forward, because we do have solutions to a lot of these issues, and we already effectively utilize them. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, thank you. If I may, I just want to make sure I don't know if the question was rhetorical or not from Attorney Summerfleck, but I do want to make clear that we're not stopping our work just because we have a task force looking at our longer term plans and strategies. So we are pursuing, as Dr. Dueñas said, an RFP for support. We are continuing to shift our operations to further support our online models, and as part of that, taking into consideration all students and all needs, including the parent training and your input as well taken with regard to the training needed for our students and parents with special needs. So no, we are not stopping and planning to plan. We are implementing and planning at the same time, and we are happy to have you be a part of it, have you provide input, and definitely keep the Vice Speaker and the legislature up to speed with regard to the progress on both fronts. So we'll be happy to do that.
Just so you're aware, from the first meeting on, you made the same comment that we would be involved and we would be invited. I've yet to be invited to a single meeting conducted by GDOE on any of these topics. And clearly you have my email address, because I get emails from your department on a daily basis. So I appreciate the ongoing offer, but again, it strikes me as, when's the rubber going to hit the road?
Vice Speaker, I don't know if you want us to keep going back and forth like this. We did take up the offer, and I thought it was coming from Dr. Dueñas. So he was engaged, and we do have stakeholder meetings planned with the task force. I know that our people, especially our legal office, sees Attorney Summerfleck probably regularly. So but we will definitely extend the invitation to make sure you and everybody, all of our stakeholders, are involved. So I apologize if you anticipated an earlier invitation, but we were focused on getting Dr. Dueñas into the conversation early, and we'll of course expand that to include you and any others who have an interest in these issues.
And hopefully the parents.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, Attorney Summerfleck, I'm sure Guam Department of Education is going to include the parents. Thank you for your inquiry. It has opened up a lot of recommendations for us to also include. So thank you for that. Is there anyone else? Senator Tydegui, do you have any questions?
No, I don't, Madam Chair. Okay. I just like to thank everyone for all their hard work and continuing this. I was in the last meeting, so I have a great interest into this. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Castro?
Questions, ma'am. Thank you, Vice Speaker.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank Guam Department of Education and their continued hard work. I must say that since we started having these roundtable discussions, that we have seen things move, towards progress. And I agree with Attorney Summerfleck about implementation, and not just creating the plan. And I know, Superintendent, you agree with that as well. We want to see this implemented. And did I freeze up again?
You're fine.
Okay. Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay, forgive me. I'm using my phone now. I just keep on dropping in and out. But, I want to thank Guam Department of Education for everything that they've done. And this is not an easy road, and I appreciate the hard work that you are doing. And hopefully, we do address, not hopefully, but we do address some of the concerns that Attorney Summerfleck mentioned, bringing assistance to the families. So thank you for that. Am I still online? Can you guys hear me? I had to transfer. Okay, great. All right. And so we will recess this roundtable discussion, and we will continue to communicate with Guam Department of Education and stakeholders that are also concerned about this issue, and we will continue to also relay the information that we receive from our office to Guam Department of Education. And so I'd like to thank everyone for being here. Is there any last minute concerns or comments?
Vice Speaker, I just want to share, I do have a parent meeting with the advisory panel. I will talk with the chairperson, Ms. Carol Darlow, and let her know that Mr. Summerfleck is interested in being a part of these conversations so that she can reach out to Attorney Summerfleck.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Rossetti. Okay, thank you again, Mr. Superintendent, for the hard work of your team. Thank you for everything that Guam Department of Education is doing, all of you. It's not easy. This is a really a different animal we are seeing. Everyone has to adjust their lives, to be safe, really, to be safe. So it is now 9:28 in the morning. I'd like to thank you all once again. God bless you. And we have adjourned our meeting. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.